Dear learners, welcome to our program on Foundation course in Food Production. The topic that we will be learning today is cooking. In this topic, we will be talking about what is cooking, aims and objectives of cooking, modes of heat transfer, what are the various methods of cooking, components of food, and how heat affects various components of food. Okay. So let's talk about cooking. When we look at the technical definition of the cooking, it says cooking is application and withdrawal of heat to attain the desired physical and chemical changes. So let's understand what are these physical and chemical changes and how they take place. So as we talked that cooking is application and withdrawal of heat. When heat is applied to a matter, the molecules or atoms in the matter starts bouncing or shaking. Depending on the state of matter, this shaking of molecules or bouncing of molecules is more or less visible. As you can see the boiling of water, in liquid state of matter you can see that the molecules are bouncing or shaking at a rapid speed. While we talk about some solid food, it is very difficult to notice with the naked eyes that bouncing of the molecules. But this bouncing of the molecules is due to the transfer of heat, and as these molecules bounce or change rapidly, the physical structure and chemical structure of the food component changes, and which results in cooked food. Okay. So moving on to aim of the cooking, what is the aim of cooking? The aim of cooking is to attain the physical and chemical changes in the food which results in edible and acceptable food which is fit for human consumption. Along with that, there are certain objectives of cooking which are to make the food easy to masticate, which means easy to chew and digest, make the food look good. During cooking we combine various textures and flavors of the food, colors of the food that makes it look good. Then taste good, combination of various tastes. Okay. Nutrition, to attain nutrition, when we cook we combine different nutritions in the food to make it more nutritious. Okay. To make the food safe, when food is heated to a certain temperature, the microorganisms which are harmful, they are destroyed and food becomes safe to heat. Then combine flavors, there are various flavors which are associated with various ingredients. When we cook we combine different ingredients to attain a combination of flavors in the food. Then variety, when we cook food we get variety of food. We can cook same ingredient or same food by various methods to attain varieties in our food. At least but not last, preservation. Various methods of cooking are also used to preserve food, which means to increase the shelf life of the food. Okay. So these were the objectives of the cooking. Then when we say that cooking is withdrawal and application of heat, this heat is transferred to food by various modes. Let's discuss these modes of heat transfer. Okay. So the first mode of heat transfer is conduction, then we have convection, then radiation and induction. Let's talk about these modes one by one. Conduction. Okay. When heat is transferred from objects which are connected to each other, or when heat is transferred from one part to the other part of the same object from molecule to molecule. Okay. So transfer of heat when two bodies are connected to each other, or transfer of heat from one part to the other part of the body can be understood as conduction. Okay. So when heat is transferred through this method, this is considered as conduction. Next is convection. Convection is a mode of heat transfer when heat is transferred from the source to the object via the streams of air, maybe water. Okay. So when hot air circulates, as you must have understood that on the surface of earth, when sun rays hit, the air closer to the surface of the earth gets heated up and it goes up, and cold air from above comes down, which results in a circulation of the air. Okay. Similarly, when the food is put in the center of a oven where heat is circulated using a fan, so that cooking or that mode of transfer is considered as convection. Okay. So talking about the next mode of heat transfer, we have radiation. Okay. Radiation occurs when this heat is transferred by waves. Okay. You can take the example of microwave oven. When focused waves are used to heat up a matter, in this case food, as in microwave. Then we have induction. Induction is a latest technology which is used in cooktops, where electromagnet is used to transfer the current through a glass cooktop to heat the food or pan on the glass top directly. Okay. So this is considered as induction mode of heat transfer. Now, after we have finished the mode of heat transfer, let's talk about what are the various components of the food, so that later we can understand how heat affects these components of the food. So the major components of food are carbohydrates, proteins, fats, minerals and vitamins, including pigments, flavors and water at the end. Okay. So let's understand what is the effect of heat on food by understanding the effect of heat on various components of the food. Okay. Let's talk about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates in our food are majorly in the form of starches or sugars. And when heat is applied to starches, we get gelatinization as the starches start to swell. Okay. This swelling of starches is gelatinization. Okay. When we apply heat to the sugar, the reaction that takes place is called caramelization, which results in browning of various foods. Another component of food under the carbohydrate category is fiber, which is present in fruits and vegetables. When heat is applied to fibers, maybe a moist method, maybe steaming or boiling, okay, to this method, the fibers get softened and becomes easy to digest, and also helps in cleaning the digestive system or make the digestive system work properly. Okay. Next major component of the food is proteins. Okay. Reactions that take place when heat is applied to the food, the protein changes. First stage is denaturing of the protein. Protein starts denaturing, which means protein starts to break down when it is combined with citric acid. Okay. And further, when we continue the cooking of proteins, the hardening of the proteins start, which is called coagulation. Okay. These are the changes that take place in protein when heat is applied. Next component, major component of food is fats. Okay. Fats are present in various food products like meat, poultry, fish, eggs, milk, butter. Okay. And fats are also used as a medium of cooking, like for frying we use oils. Okay. So the major change that comes in fats is smoking of the fats. When heat is applied to the fats, fats start producing smoke, and different fats or oils start smoking at different temperatures depending on the type of fat. Okay. And this smoking gives dark color to the fat, and as a result the food which we are cooking in this fat will also start turning dark in color. So the temperature must be controlled according to the type of fat that we are using. Talking about the next component, we are keeping together minerals, vitamins, pigments and flavors of the food. As these are present in very less quantity or amount in the food, but they are very critical and required for human body. Okay. So most of the minerals and vitamins get lost when they are water soluble and you are not keeping the cooking liquid. Otherwise, there is no such major change which takes place in minerals and vitamins when heat is applied. Okay. So water soluble minerals or vitamins can get lost if we are not using the proper technique, or these can escape through steam, or you are not using the cooking liquid, then these loss can take place. Talking about the pigments, pigments are the colors that are naturally available in different ingredients like fruits and vegetables, and when we are cooking, these pigments changes their color. Okay. That depends on the alkali or pH level of the cooking liquid. Acidic medium starts the brightness of the color initially, and alkali mediums, they get the color dull. Further, it depends on duration of cooking. If any food is cooked for a longer duration, the color will turn dark. Okay. Talking about water, nearly every food contains water, and when we cook, heat is applied to a food, this water starts evaporating and the food ingredient starts losing its moistness, or the moisture present in the food gets lost. As a result, the food becomes dry. Okay. So, depending on what texture we are looking for in the food, we see how much water should be retained in the food. Accordingly, we choose this method of applying heat to water. Like we are using boiling as a method of cooking. When boiling takes place at 100 degree of temperature, 100 degrees Celsius to be precise, at this temperature water starts boiling. Okay. Further, water starts evaporation, then you lose the water by evaporation process. Okay. This is what happens to different components of the food when heat is applied. Let us talk about characteristics of the food. Okay. There are various characteristics of food which makes the food look and taste how we see it. Okay. So, these components of food can be understood as taste, texture, color, flavor. Then to retain these, we have temperature and time. Okay. Taste, talking about taste, taste is that characteristic of the food which is experienced by the sensory evaluation of the tongue. Okay. Whereas texture is something that is felt by touch. It can be the touch of hand, it can be the touch of cutlery that you are using. Further, touch and feel of the food in your mouth can be considered as texture. Color of the food, okay. How you can see color, various color represents presence of various nutritional aspect in the food. Okay. So, combination of colors in your plate ensures that your food is nutritionally rich. Flavor again is a combination of essence or abstracts of different ingredients which make your food taste or smell in a certain way. And when food is served at a specific temperature or it is stored at a specific temperature, you are able to retain taste, texture, color and flavor in the food. Further, time at a certain temperature, for how much time food is kept at a temperature also makes sure how the taste, texture, color and flavor of the food will be in the end. So, above all, understanding heat or transfer of heat to the food, then how that heat affects various components of the food, and furthermore how these components when combined brings together various characteristics of the food, makes a chef understand how he can get the desired physical and chemical change as we discussed earlier in the food, and furthermore how you can make the food look good, taste good and be safe for consumption, at the same time be nutritionally rich. Okay. So, now there are various methods of cooking which are used for cooking different types of dish or ingredients to attain varieties of taste, texture, color and flavor in the food. Let us discuss these methods of cooking. Okay. So, when we talk about methods of cooking, these are the methods which are subjected to ingredients for applying heat. Okay. So, this application of heat can be a combination of various modes of heat transfer like conduction, convection, induction or radiation as we discussed, okay, and which results in a desired taste, texture, color or flavor. Okay. So, these methods of cooking are majorly classified into two categories, being moist methods of cooking and dry methods of cooking. Okay. So, moist methods of cooking, as the name suggests, moist. So, here the medium of cooking will be some kind of liquid, okay, which this liquid will provide moistness to the food. Okay. So these methods are blanching, boiling, poaching, steaming, stewing and braising, which are generally practiced by a chef. Okay. There may be more, but these are the basic moist methods of the cooking. Okay. Let's take them up one by one. Blanching. To blanch food means cooking or partially cooking an ingredient or food item in rapidly boiling water for a short period of time. Okay. So generally this method is used to remove impurities from the food, or further it is also used for de-skinning or de-seeding of some ingredients like tomatoes. When we blanch a tomato, it becomes easier to de-skin and de-seed. Further, these de-seeded and de-skinned tomatoes can be used for preparing tomato purees. Okay. Another point that one should keep in mind, that when you are blanching a vegetable or other ingredient, right after the blanching process, when you are subjecting your food into the cold water right after the rapidly boiling water, it stops the process of cooking, which helps you in getting the desired texture and color. As in case of leafy green vegetables, when you blanch them and you subject them to cold water right after blanching, the color gets brightened and it helps in retaining the color of the vegetables. Next method that we can pick up is boiling. Boiling is a method of cooking when a food item or ingredient is cooked in a liquid which is boiling at a temperature of 100 degrees Celsius. Okay. We consider 100 degrees Celsius as a boiling temperature. There are certain indicators that what one can observe for boiling of any food item. These are that the bubbles of the water should be on the surface of the water in the pan. Okay. And the food item which you are boiling should be totally immersed or dipped inside this boiling water. Okay. And you continue to boil the food until and unless the food is tender and soft or the desired texture is achieved, which is required for preparation of a certain dish by the chef. Okay. Next method, moist method, is poaching. Okay. Similar to boiling, but there is a change of temperature. As we discussed, in case of boiling, you see the bubbles on the surface of the water. In case of poaching, bubbles are on the bottom of the pan inside the cooking liquid. Generally water, which may be flavored with an acidic agent like vinegar, lemon, or at times wine, and some seasoning like salt and pepper. Okay. So the temperature is below 100 degree, which can range from 80 to 85, at sometimes near to 90 also. Okay. But water should not be boiling, but you could still see the steam escaping from the water. Okay. So this liquid is used for cooking of certain ingredients, and when ingredients are cooked in this steaming water below 100 degree Celsius of temperature, and food are cooked submerged or immersed inside this liquid. Okay. So this method is considered as poaching. Another method of cooking is steaming. Okay. When you keep the food right above the boiling water or liquid, the steam is escaping from the boiling water in forms of evaporation. Okay. So when you trap that steam to cook food right above the boiling water, as in case of momos, the popular food these days, and when we talk about some traditional Indian food, you can take examples of idlis from south. Okay. So when boiling water is contained inside a container which is enclosed, and inside this enclosed chamber you can keep some food items right above the boiling water. Okay. As in case of idli or momos we already discussed, and this steam passes through the food through the perforated sheets on which we keep the food. Okay. And this steam helps to cook the food. That is the steaming method of cooking. Next is stewing. Stewing is another gentle, slow, moist method of cooking. Okay. So in this moist method of cooking, we have a cooking liquid. Inside this cooking liquid we put vegetables or meat, and these meat and vegetables are cooked inside this liquid itself along with some spices or flavorings as required by the recipe, and on a simmering temperature where water is not rapidly boiling. Okay, but this ingredient like maybe vegetables or meat gets cooked, and this method is considered as stewing, and this cooking liquid is served along with the dish. It is part of the dish like gravy, okay, or curry or maybe sauce in certain recipes. Okay, that is stewing. Okay. Then we have braising as a method of cooking. Okay. When we talk about braising, braising is a combination method of cooking, okay, where we combine two different methods of cooking. One is roasting, which is a dry method of cooking. We will discuss it in the dry methods of cooking, but in braising, first a food item is subjected to roasting, which is a dry method of cooking, and it is partially or rather at times fully cooked by that roasting, and after roasting it is subjected to stewing, which is another method in this combination method of cooking. So braising is a combination of two methods, roasting and stewing. Okay. So first we roast the food, after roasting it is cooked in a liquid in its own juices, that is braising. Okay. So these were the moist methods of cooking, and when we talk about these moist methods of cooking, most of these moist methods of cooking use convection or conduction as mode of heat transfer. Okay. After the moist methods of cooking, let's move to the dry methods of cooking. Okay. Further, these dry methods of cooking can be classified on the basis of medium. Okay. Like if you are using fat as a medium of cooking, there is a certain set of dry methods of cooking, and you can also use dry air for cooking. So there are certain methods, rather dry methods of cooking, which use air as a medium. So first let's talk about medium of fat in dry methods of cooking. By medium of fat we have sauteing, stir fry, pan fry, shallow fry and deep fry, which are methods of cooking using medium of fat. Okay. So talking about saute, saute means to cook quickly in a small amount of fat. Okay. It is taken from the French word sauter, which means to jump. Okay. So we heat a little amount of fat in a pan and we put ingredients that we want to saute. Okay. These can be pre-boiled or pre-blanched or pre-partially cooked ingredients, and then these ingredients are subjected to pan with a little amount of fat and you toss them. This tossing refers to jump as sauter in French. Okay. But every saute may not include tossing of the ingredients in the pan, but it will still be considered saute. Okay. Stir frying. Stir frying, the major difference between sauteing and stir frying is, one, the quantity of oil is slightly more in stir frying comparing to saute, and the technique which you are using instead of tossing is stirring. You use a spatula to stir the food in the pan, that is stir fry. Okay. And pan fry we use moderate amount of fat, okay, which is further more than the stir fry method of cooking. In this method we heat oil in the pan, and in that pan we add food that we want to pan fry, but the level of oil inside the pan should not be so much that the food is dipped inside the fat. Okay. So here the level of fat should be below the half the height of the food in the pan. Okay. If it is reaching the half height of the food in the pan, then this method will be called as shallow frying. Okay. So for pan frying, the height of the fat, rather oil in the pan, should be below the half of the height of food in the pan. Okay. Talking about shallow frying, as discussed along with pan fry, in shallow fry the oil's quantity in the pan should be reaching half of the pan, food height in the pan, but it should not be reaching to the full height of the food in the pan. So it's somewhere between half and full height of the food in the pan. Okay. As you see in case of cutlets which are being fried, Indian cutlets like aloo tikki that we see being prepared on a pan or tawa rather, griddle, okay, where quantity of oil is such that it is reaching to the half of the tikki which is being cooked. That is shallow frying. Another method of medium of fat under dry methods of cooking is deep frying. Okay. Deep frying, as the name suggests, the food item which is being fried should go deep into the fat. So it should be fully submerged in the fat while being cooked. So that becomes the deep fry methods of cooking. The popular ingredients which are used for deep frying is potato. Potato is one of the most popular ingredient cooked by deep frying method. Okay. To be in the dishes like samosa or pakoda, there are various Indian dishes which are cooked by this method, deep frying. Okay. So these were the dry methods of cooking using fat as a medium. Now let's talk about dry methods of cooking using air as a medium. These methods are baking, roasting, boiling, grilling and broiling. Okay. So talking about roasting, roasting is a method of cooking where heat is transferred to food by air, okay, at times keeping the food above fire, as in case of early men's cooking where they used to hang the whole animal above the fire, where heat from fire is transferred to food by air. The hot air gets to the food and food is cooked by that air. Okay. In modern times, this roasting is also done in ovens, okay, when heat is circulated to food inside a closed chamber, which is oven. Okay. Here comes the another method of cooking, which is dry method of cooking using air as a medium of transfer, which is baking. Baking is for sure done in a closed chamber, which is oven, and hot air is circulated around the food. Now the question arises, what is the difference between roasting and baking when both can be done in a closed chamber by circulating hot air around the food? Okay. So the difference is, in baking you will see a noticeable amount of rise in the volume of the food, as in case of various breads, cakes and even cookies. Okay. So the volume increases during the cooking, whereas when we talk about roasting, it is reverse. In roasting, the food loses the volume as the moisture content or water content in the food evaporates during cooking, and this food gets dry and shrinks in size. Okay. So that is roasting and baking. Okay. Roasting further can be done without an oven, as we talked about. So there can be pit roast when you are roasting in a pit. Then Indian clay oven, which is called tandoor, roasting can be done in tandoor also. Okay. So there can be roasting outside the oven also. So that is also a distinguishing point between roasting and baking. Baking can only be done inside an oven, when roasting can also be done without an oven. Another method, dry method of cooking using medium of air as cooking, is boiling, where food is kept inside a casserole or a pan, where layers of animal fat are there around the food, but that fat is not the medium of cooking. The cooking is done by medium of air. Okay. So inside the pan we keep layers of lard, which is animal fat, and we keep the food that we want to cook, and then we cook it inside an oven. That is boiling. Grilling. Grilling is cooking food in open on a grill. Okay. So there are grilled food can easily be identified by the hash marks which are over the food due to the various lines which are there on a grill. Okay. And food, when it is turned over on a grill, because grill is providing heat from the bottom only to the food, and when one side gets cooked, you have to flip the food on the grill, and during this flipping process the hash marks are obtained on the grills. on the food item which is grilled. Another method is broiling. Broiling is a completely dry method of cooking, generally used to take the moisture away from the whole spices which you want to turn into powdered spices, and further it is also used to give brown color to a cooked food from the top side, as in case of pizza. Okay. So in broiling, heat is provided from the above or from the top, okay, to the ingredient which we want to give color or which we want to take the moisture away from. Okay. So that method is considered as broiling method of cooking. So these were the methods of cooking. There are certain advanced methods of cooking also, which we will take up in the advanced classes. As far as the foundation course in food production considered, we talk about these basic methods of cooking, but as a chef one should always understand that there are other methods of cooking also. So to summarize, in today's session we talked about what is cooking, the transfer of heat and withdrawal of heat, what are the various methods or modes of transfer heat, like conduction, convection, radiation, induction. Okay. What are the components of the food? Proteins, vitamins, carbohydrates, minerals, fats, pigments, flavors and water. What are the characteristics of the food? Taste, texture, color, flavor combined with time and temperature. And what are the various methods of cooking, be it dry methods of cooking or moist methods of cooking, and inside dry methods of cooking, what are the various methods of dry cooking using medium of fat or medium of air. So this was it about cooking. We will continue the learning in our next topic. Thank you for joining.